Conflicting reports regarding the status of negotiations between the Buccaneers and Tristan Wirfs, that and more on today's episode of Locked On Bucs.
You are Locked On Buccaneers, your daily Tampa Bay Buccaneers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, and welcome into this episode of Locked On Bucs, your daily podcast covering the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I want to thank you for making Locked On Bucs your first listen or view every day. Don't forget you can subscribe or follow for free on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. And of course, you can follow along on Twitter. I am James Yarcho at JYarcho_Bucs, credentialed member of the media, covering your Tampa Bay Buccaneers as deputy editor of SB Nation's BucsNation.com. Here with you every Monday through Friday, along with the everydayers. And for that, I want to share my appreciation for your continued support of the show. One of the ways you can support the show is become a Locked On Bucs insider. You're going to get news, rumors, updates, general thoughts, one-on-one conversations with me via text message. Go to joinsubtext.com/LockedOnBucs or click the link in the show notes to become an insider today. This episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more as the playoffs have wound down. The sports stop sportsing like we want them to. This summer, FanDuel is hooking up all customers with a boost or a bonus daily. That's right. There's something for everyone every day, all summer long. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. Bucky Irving is looking to help take the run game to the next level, while a certain video game franchise finally shows Mike Evans some respect, then turns around and disrespects one of the best players in the game. But that's all coming up in a little bit. We're going to start today off by talking about Tristan Wirfs and his pending extension. There were some conflicting reports late on Sunday as far as where negotiations stand between the Buccaneers and franchise tackle Tristan Wirfs. Jordan Schultz reported that the Bucs and Wirfs were quote-unquote miles apart, according to his source. On the flip side, you had both Rick Stroud and Pewter Report saying the opposite. Pewter Report tweeted that, quote, "We've heard otherwise, not that a deal is close or imminent, but not miles apart," end quote. While Stroud said that the two sides were making progress, but that there were a few more hurdles to clear, following that up by saying the Bucs are expected to make Wirfs the highest paid tackle in the NFL, exceeding the $28 million AAV of Lions tackle Penei Sewell. For what it's worth, and I know I don't carry the same weight as Rick Stroud or Pewter Report when it comes to breaking news, but I was texted the same thing on Sunday night, that a deal was getting close, and it definitely wasn't a miles apart situation. You add that in with Jason Light's appearance on WDAE last week, where he was asked about those negotiations, and he said, quote, "Tristan is one of our favorite players of all time here. He's such an unselfish guy as well, out here practicing like he has been. It's not surprising given the unselfishness he has, as well as not wanting to let his teammates down or his quarterback down. We're continuing to work hard on both ends. We have really good communication. I can promise you this, Tristan is going to be playing for the Bucs this year. He's going to be playing for the Bucs in the distant future. I think we're going to get something done at some point. I just can't say when, but we'll get something done. I'm optimistic that hopefully it will be soon," end quote. Now, let's just go ahead and follow that up with what Tristan himself told the media on Monday after practice when he was asked about the contract negotiations and if they were getting close to a deal. And he said, quote, Yeah, I think so. I mean, it's all been good. We're just trying to work out some little things. But no, I think we're moving well. These past couple of days have been really good. We've just got to bring it home," end quote. These are not things that are said when a deal is miles apart. What's going on with Brandon Ayuk, what's been going on with CeeDee Lamb, the hold-in by Trent Williams, that's what it looks like to be miles apart. This is two sides wanting to get a deal done, and it sounds honestly like the basic framework, or at least a general idea of the framework, is done, but it's about the little things now and getting those things done. As Stroud said, it's the hurdles. Tristan said some little things. This could be guaranteed money, signing bonus, option years, but I don't think Light is going to be shy about this. Tristan is going to be the highest paid tackle in the NFL. Will he cross that $30 million per year average? I'm not sure if it gets quite that high. We're talking $2 million, but that's still a pretty significant bump over Penei Sewell. But we could be looking at 28 and a half, 29. A 5-year, $145 million deal would put Wirfs at $29 million per season, which is $1 million more than the highest paid tackle in the NFL and $3 million more per year than the highest paid left tackle, which is Christian Darrisaw in Minnesota. He gets $26 million per year. It also surpasses the total value of Trent Williams' last contract when he was given $138 million for 6 years. Wirfs would completely reset the market. And I don't want to play Mr. Conspiracy Theorist, but if Wirfs rolls in with a deal worth $145 million and an average annual value of $29 million a year, while Trent Williams is a hold-in with the Niners because he wants a new deal at 36 years old when he still has 3 years left, that could create some major problems for the 49ers. They aren't going to want to pay a guy that's about to be 37. He's going to be 39 when his contract is up. They're not going to want to give that guy Tristan Wirfs money. You're talking about betting on a guy on the wrong side of 35, nearly 40 years old, and giving him $29-30 million a year. That's crazy. They're not going to want to surpass that Wirfs deal. That could lead to some really, really bad blood on the part of Trent Williams, who wants to get this deal done, and he could force his hand to a trade to someone who would be willing to pay a 40-year-old that high of an amount of money. Now, Tristan didn't participate in the full contact practice on Monday. He's still going to participate in some activities in training camp as he's been doing, but he told the media that he sat down with head coach Todd Bowles and said that he feels he has to be out there, but he wants to be cautious, especially after having been on the field when he saw what happened to Ryan Jensen a few years ago. Honestly, that's a smart decision by him. And yes, of course, accidents happen and there's risk even when it isn't full contact. But this isn't Graham Barton or Jalen McMillan or Chris Braswell sitting out to be cautious as a rookie. This is arguably the best player in the league at his position in the middle of his first major contract negotiation. You don't want to take any unneeded risk and cost yourself potentially tens of millions of dollars. We know what Tristan is going to be once it's time to turn it up a notch. We know what he's going to be when it's time to actually suit up. Missing a few full contact practices or drills isn't going to change who he is at this stage as a football player. But do not overlook the mentality of this young man, or for that matter, the leadership. Todd Bowles even mentioned it, that it speaks volumes that he's trying to get his first big contract in the NFL, his first non-rookie scale contract, and he's not holding out. He's not even holding in. He's not skipping everything. He's still there. He's still participating. And if he's not participating in the full contact drills like was the case on Monday, he's out there coaching up Justin School, who would be the guy to step in if something were to happen to him and he were to suffer an injury and miss some time during the regular season. He's trying to help Justin School get better. That's a leader of your football team. That's a guy that the other players are going to respect, they're going to emulate, and they are going to follow without question. All eyes are on the run game and rookie running back Bucky Irving. That is next on today's episode of Locked On Bucs, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I love sports. I love them so much. I never want them to stop. But as the playoffs have wound down, we get fewer games and the sports aren't sportsing like I want them to. But FanDuel lets me keep the sports going whenever I want. All I have to do is open up the app and dream up bets anytime I'm in the mood. And this summer, FanDuel is hooking up all customers with a boost or bonus daily. That's right. There's something for everyone every day all summer long. Right now, the Dodgers are the favorites to win the World Series at plus 320, while the Tampa Bay Rays are selling off players at the deadline and are sitting at plus 29,000. If you'd rather get in on some NFL odds early on, the Chiefs and Niners are tied atop the Super Bowl odds at plus 600, while the Bucs have somehow dropped to plus 6,500 and are sitting at plus 310 to win the NFC South. Head over to FanDuel.com and start making the most out of your summer. FanDuel, official sports betting partner of Major League Baseball. Thank you again for making Locked On Bucs your first listen review every day. Everydayers, make sure you are coming back tomorrow. There is no WTSP Wednesday tomorrow. Evan is going to be busy covering stuff going on with the Rays Stadium. David Shealy is going to be over covering the Buccaneers night practice. We are tentatively going to have Evan on Thursday's episode, but still plenty more to talk about regarding the Buccaneers and how things are going at training camp. In the meantime, if you want to hear the latest news from around all of sports, but you want to hear more than just the national narratives and fake manufactured, made up arguing and screaming at one another, make the switch to Locked On Sports Today. It's a free 24/7 sports streaming channel programmed for you every day to bring you the biggest stories without the fake screaming. Locked On Sports Today is streaming 24/7 on YouTube or the free Amazon Fire TV channels app, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Bucky Irving is supposed to bring that spark to the run game that the Bucs have been sorely lacking, and he's not shy about telling you that the rushing attack is going to be much better than before. Coming from a program like Oregon, Bucky was, of course, asked about his first padded practice at the NFL level, and he said it was nice, but that every practice at Oregon was that way. The big difference being that at this level, the guys aren't trying to rip their own teammates' heads off to show off for the coaches or try to get more playing time over the weekend. But there is a steep curve for Irving, who isn't just getting used to the NFL game, but he's learning an entirely new, very complex offense where he's going to be the guy that the Bucs turn to provide a threat out of the backfield that isn't named Rachaad White. As we've discussed on this show before, if Bucky can't make things happen in the run and in the pass game, and there's no viable threat outside of Rachaad, the Bucs run game is going to look a lot like it did last year. But Rachaad knows that and has taken Bucky under his wing a little bit. And Irving was asked about his relationship with Rachaad, and he said, quote, "He's helped me out a lot. He always just tells me to be me. Don't change how I run. I know what got me here and to be the back that I'm here to be. Anytime I come back and I have a run, I ask him what I could have done better, and he always coaches me up. Him and Chase do a great job of doing that each time I ask those guys any types of questions," end quote. But the difficulties of learning Liam Cohen's offense was quite the task for Irving, and he talked about that as well as what he thinks of the run game. He told the media, quote, "At first it was challenging, really challenging, coming from Oregon's offense to this offense. But I just had to take the time and sit back and know the scheme on what Liam Cohen is trying to accomplish from getting his playmakers the ball, making the space, and being able to create explosive plays. That's something we always work on every day. The run game is going to be fantastic. We have good running backs in the room that can create explosive runs. Shout out to all those guys in the room. If we just keep attacking it every day and doing what we're doing, we're going to have a great season," end quote. This is what the Bucs truly need to unlock their potential as an offense. It looks like they have that wide receiver 3 emerging after McMillan had another really good day on Monday. But the run game, if the run game can get off the ground, no pun intended, and all of a sudden you have 2, maybe 3 guys back there that can create explosive plays and generate that threat, holy crap, this offense can really become unleashed. I do think that Chase is more of an explosive play threat as a pass catcher than a runner, but the Bucs need at least 2 guys that can generate explosives both as a runner and as a pass catcher. Bucky getting comfortable and garnering that chemistry with Baker Mayfield is so important for the Bucs to have success. Bucky talked about ways that Baker and his college quarterback Bo Nix were similar in that it boils down to the way that they hate losing, and how that kind of attitude and personality is something that he likes to be around, and those are guys that he's happy to go into battle with. Bucky, and then of course Graham Barton, they're going to have huge roles in reviving this rushing attack. Hopefully Bredesen or Opeta, whoever emerges as the left guard, can do the same and help this rushing attack. Wirfs talked about Barton, saying how well he moves, talking about how smart he is. Of course, that's on top of how strong and athletic we all know that Barton is, but that Barton and Hainsey are tight with one another and they work together to make each other better. Look, we know Baker can sling it. We saw it last year when he had a career season. We know the Bucs have players that can catch the ball and make plays. But go back for a moment and think about last season and how one-dimensional the Bucs were and how it translated into a brutal losing streak coming out of that bye week. Then they start to get Rachaad going in the passing game. That opens things up for Rachaad in the run game. And then they go on an absolute tear and find themselves in the divisional round in the playoffs. Think of how effective the pass game was, during that streak when Rachaad was a threat in the run game. Rachaad rattled off 5 straight games with 100 or more all-purpose yards. He had 5 of his last 7 games where he rushed for 75 yards or more, compared to 0 games of 75 or more rushing yards in the first 10 weeks of the season. Over that stretch, the Bucs were 5-2. Baker threw 13 touchdowns and only 4 interceptions, while averaging 235 yards a game. Over the first 10 games, when Rachaad was not as big of a factor as he was for those last 7, Baker had 15 touchdown passes and 6 interceptions and averaged just 2 more passing yards per game. That's the impact that a solid running back can make. And if they have 2 guys now that they can not only open things up in the run game, but are an explosive play waiting to happen in the pass game as well, and teams have to start to account for that, that is bad news for opposing defensive coordinators to try to scheme against this Buccaneers offense. Stack the box. Cool. They're going to gash you with Mike, with Chris, with Jalen, with Cade, with Trey, with Rakeem, with Sterling Shepard. Drop everyone back and try to take away those receiving threats. Rachaad and Bucky are going to run it inside, outside, and everywhere in between. Or they can catch a little swing pass out in space, and then they're going to hit you for 15, 20-yard gashes at a time. Jason Light really needs this pick of Bucky Irving to hit. Go back a few weeks ago when I was talking about the failures that Jason Light has had in drafting running backs. And honestly, we went through kind of the team as a whole. They don't have a rich history of drafting the running back position. It's not as bad as their history of drafting quarterbacks, but it's up there as one of the worst positions that they've drafted historically, throughout the history of this franchise. But as much as they need Graham Barton to be who they think he will be, as much as they need Chris Braswell to step up and shine as part of that edge rush rotation, the Bucs and Jason Light need Bucky Irving to be a home run pick. He, much like Zion McCollum, who I talked about yesterday, could be the ultimate X factor on the offensive side of the ball as far as how this season is going to go for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. The Bucs finally get a little respect, just to turn around and be disrespected again. That is coming up next on today's episode of Locked On Bucs. Time is an authorized ticket marketplace in Major League Baseball, which makes getting tickets faster and easier. Prices on the Game Time app actually go down the closer it gets to first pitch. You want to catch an upcoming Rays game? Well, Tickets when they host the Marlins start at $19. Against the Orioles, they start at $16. Then against the Astros, you can get tickets as low as $15. But what about a Buccaneers game? You can get Buccaneers regular season tickets as low as $48, and you can get tickets to see them take on the Commanders in week 1 starting at just $79. And all these prices that I just listed feature Game Time's all-in pricing, so you're not going to be surprised by any fees when you get to checkout. You could also wait until the last minute when prices drop by as much as 60%, or buy them now knowing that you have Game Time's lowest price guarantee. Take the guesswork out of buying MLB tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. Wrapping things up here on the Tuesday edition of the Locked On Bucs podcast, and Madden 25 has started to release their top 10 rated players at each position. And I'm not going to lie, I was pleasantly surprised when I saw that Mike Evans was the 10th overall receiver in the game. I texted the Locked On Bucs insiders and I told them about it, and then listed off the players rated ahead of Evans in order. They are Tyreek Hill, Justin Jefferson, CeeDee Lamb, A.J. Brown, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Devontae Adams, Jamar Chase, Stephon Diggs, Brandon Ayuk, and then at number 10, Mike Evans. Now, Ayuk and Evans both rated a 91 overall, and then A.J. Brown and Amon-Ra St. Brown were both 95 overall. So you could theoretically say that Evans and Ayuk were tied for 8th, but you know what? It's just nice to see that they at least put Mike Evans in the top 10. We've talked all offseason about Bucs players being overlooked, underrated, disrespected, ignored. You have Levante David 99th in the NFL top 100. Wirfs was somewhere in the 80s, which is just asinine. Baker was 102nd, so he just missed out on the top 100. But Joe Flacco was a couple of spots behind him. Like, what are we doing here? So one of the insiders texted me back after I sent out that message about Mike Evans, and he said that Evans is arguably better than 3 of the guys rated ahead of him, and I think that's fair. You could make the argument that Mike Evans is better than Stephon Diggs. You could make the argument that Mike Evans is better than Devontae Adams, though you could also make the argument that Devontae Adams' quarterback play last year caused him to not shine in the way that we've become accustomed to him shining. We'll see how that plays out with the Raiders this year, or if he ends up being traded to the Jets to go play with Aaron Rodgers. I think Jamar Chase should have been higher than Devontae Adams. I think CeeDee Lamb probably shouldn't have been as high, but all of that put aside, as I said to Fausto when I texted him back, at this point, it's the little victories. They actually acknowledged Evans in the top 10, which is where he belongs. And at this point, I don't care where he is in the top 10. I'm just glad that someone finally woke up and realized, hey, we need to put some respect on this man's name for what he has done in the NFL, not just last year, but for the first 10 years of his career. But then all the good favor that those folks at EA on the Madden team earned, they promptly threw in the trash when the overall safety ranks dropped and they had Antoine Winfield Jr. second behind Jesse Bates. I'm sorry, what? You're going to give Jesse Bates a 97 overall rating, while Antoine Winfield Jr. is coming off of an all-time historic season, and he's sitting at a 94? Bates had more picks. Okay, fine, sure. But other than that, his season last year does not compare to what Antoine Winfield Jr. just did. Antoine had double the forced fumbles, more fumble recoveries, almost half of the missed tackles that Bates had, more sacks, more quarterback hits, more quarterback pressures, more passes defense. But let's get away from stats for a minute. How many games did Antoine Winfield Jr. legitimately save or seal for the Buccaneers last year? 4, maybe even 5. Bates didn't do that for the Falcons. He did not have that level of impact for the Falcons last season. He did not will his team to victory on numerous occasions. And let's be honest, Bucs fans aren't cringing when they hear the name Jesse Bates. Falcons fans, you say the name Antoine Winfield Jr. to a Falcons fan, and they start to twitch a little bit. And I get it. This isn't all about the Bucs versus the Falcons or the head-to-head or anything like that. And many of you longtime everydayers know the respect that I have for Jesse Bates and the elite play that he has. I got absolutely roasted in the NFC South division preview on this network last year for saying that he was the biggest addition to a team in the NFC South that wasn't the team that I covered. And I had Julian roast me, and I had Ross roast me for not talking about Bryce Young. And in fact, I think Locked On Freeman's host, Aaron Freeman, or Locked On Falcons host, Aaron Freeman, even said that it was Bryce Young. And I steadfastly maintained that Jesse Bates was the biggest playmaker that got added to a roster of a team that I didn't cover in the division. So I was right because Bryce Young was trash. All I'm saying is that when you have a player coming off of a season that has never been done before, that honestly should have been Defensive Player of the Year conversation worthy, if that award meant anything other than the best pass rusher, kind of like how MVP only goes to the best quarterback. We all know Christian McCaffrey was the MVP last year. We all know a couple of years ago, Jonathan Taylor was the MVP of the National Football League, but it only ever goes to quarterbacks. But you need to show that player the respect that he not just deserves, but that he earned, and that he should, without question, be the highest rated overall player at his position. Other noteworthy Bucs, Chris Godwin was an 85. I don't really have a big problem with that. Got off to the slow start, came on strong. I think throughout the season, when they do their in-season roster updates and they give these guys their boosts and all that, we're going to see Chris Godwin close in on 90 with the kind of season he's about to have. Rookie Jalen McMillan is a 70, which that is not bad for a rookie wide receiver. I think Bucs fans should be pretty happy with that. And then fellow starting safety Jordan Whitehead was a 78. I'm really going to be interested to see what EA does when it comes to players like Levante David, Vita Vea, Baker Mayfield, but very interested to see where they have Tristan Wirfs lined up compared to that of not just other left tackles, but other tackles across the NFL. That is going to do it for this episode of Locked On Bucs. Please check out everything going on over at BucsNation.com. Make sure you are following on Twitter at Locked On Bucs, at JYarcho_Bucs. Become a Locked On Bucs insider by going to joinsubtext.com/LockedOnBucs or click the link in the show notes. No ads or anything like that. Just genuine one-on-one conversations with me via text message. And of course, make sure you are subscribed on YouTube with the notifications on or wherever you get your podcasts. Hope you all have an absolutely outstanding day. Stay safe, stay healthy, fire the cannons. I want to thank you so much for joining me right here on Locked On Bucs, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.